So why real estate?
That's an interesting question. Yeah. I don't have like a really romantic story. It's fun. And maybe it's more nostalgic, but.
So Zach, dude, thanks for jumping on this experimental podcast.
You got it.
This is obviously going to be the little formal intro part that I don't even know if I'm going to use.
Fair enough.
But a big reason why I wanted to do this and talk with you is I think obviously when we're doing work together, doing projects, it's definitely super formal. And I think this could be an awesome environment where we can dive into obviously the industry and real estate, but even go outside of the box a little bit and just hear a little bit more about you. The biggest thing I would actually love to discuss, and we can get into this a little bit later, is the why behind what you do. Because you've been running and gunning, doing video since 2015. And I think, I've been doing since 2015 alongside you on the video production side of things. But something that's so interesting to me is to really find out what makes a person tick and go so hard in a direction, especially in their own business. So we can go into that. But I think just a fun icebreaker question that I was listening to Daphne on the way here. Give me what kind of music are you into right now?
What kind of music am I into? Yeah. Well, I am a big fan of heavy metal music. So I could start listing off a lot of different bands, but that's something that most people wouldn't know about me. So I enjoy most types of music. I always tell people if it's good, I like it. So I think every genre has good and mediocre and bad music. So for me, I enjoy the good music in every genre, but if I was to listen to a genre maybe where I'm more open to listening to a wider range of stuff, it's probably going to be metal music.
Metal music. Mm-hmm. All right, what's the top three? Top three bands.
Wow, that's tough. If I had to pick, I really like Wolves at the Gate. I like, trying to think, like historically, I've liked so many different bands. So I'm trying to think of my favorites right now. I really like a band called Volumes. And
you're jumping in your car.
I know.
You needed some metal music. What are you going to?
I have to confess, I'm a Pandora guy. So I still haven't gone away from it. I haven't transitioned over to Spotify. I like Pandora, and I put it on discovery mode, and I just listen to what comes on.
You might be the only person still listening to Pandora.
I know, so the secret's out. I'm that guy. I am still listening to Pandora in my car on discovery mode. And so I have some of my favorites highlighted in my playlist, and then it just gives me all sorts of other bands to listen to. So I'm listening to bands that I know and enjoy, and then I'm getting all these other ones that are different. So I find it fascinating. I mean, I love other bands like Oh Sleeper and August Burns Red, and I could just keep naming off other bands, but I enjoy just whatever Pandora throws at me, and then I'll just give it the thumbs up or the thumbs down. I think it's pretty slick.
Now, are you getting ads on Pandora?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
For sure. Ads for sure. I can't pay the $5 a month. I mean, who can afford that?
But you're paying for Spotify.
No, I'm not paying for Spotify. If I listen to Spotify, I'm also listening with ads.
I'm already learning a lot about you right now.
It's not something I'm willing to spend money on. There are certain things I am willing to spend money. I'm willing to buy a $200 coat that barely keeps me warm, but I'm not willing to spend $5 a month on Pandora or whatever it is and $10 a month on Spotify. Yeah.
Well,
I still use my parents' Netflix as well. Yeah.
Hey, whatever it is to save some money.
They have the family account.
You don't do the mosh pitting?
No. I have done the mosh pitting. It's just,
a little too old now.
Yeah, I don't want to spend the money on it. Now, sporting events, I'll go to live sporting events. So Mariners, mainly the Mariners are my favorite. I'm not a huge fan of going to NFL games. I almost prefer to watch football on TV. Yeah. Especially when you I end up sitting in the nosebleeds. Yeah. Hockey's more fun for me in person. Yeah. Yeah. Kraken are fun. But I think the Mariners are what I default to going to. And I wish there was NBA basketball. That would be really fun, but we got to bring back the Sonics. And maybe I hear it might happen. Yeah. The new TV deals, I think 2024, 2025. So
you have gone to hockey games?
Yeah.
I haven't done the Kraken yet.
Hockey's not my favorite sport. My wife really likes hockey. She grew up going to the Silvertips games. So this was well before the Kraken, and she grew up in Everett. So Silvertips were super close. So we've gone to some Silvertips games. Honestly, I prefer to stay home with the little ones while she takes the older ones. That's how I feel about hockey, but it's fun to have NHL hockey in Seattle, and I took my wife. I think we went last year. We haven't gone this year yet, but it's it's a fun experience. And especially when my wife's got a big smile on her face, it's worth it.
Yeah. Now, I've known you and your family for really since college, but then when you married Christina, even though I know you so well.
You married a Christine, which is kind of fun.
But even though I know you so well, I feel like your family continually is getting an extra person like every year.
It's about every 2 years.
Remind me of your entire family to date right now.
We have an 8-year-old boy, 6-year-old boy, 4-year-old daughter, and a 22-month-old daughter. And we're expecting a little boy in March. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, there's about 2-year age gap on average between all the kids. Yeah.
Any name picked out?
Not yet.
Secret?
It's not picked out yet. It will be a secret.
Who's the decider?
We decide together. We haven't ever argued about it, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been pretty unanimous. So we
Yeah.
just go till we have a name that we like and middle name we like, and we go for it. The hardest one was deciding after having the kid. So the first 3, we found out the gender right away. We knew we were having boys, and then the third one, a girl. Number 4, Christina said, hey, I want to wait to find out until the baby's born. And we had the hardest time deciding on a name because we didn't know. And we were also trying to decide on 2. So it was a weird dynamic. And we literally had no name picked out for a boy for number 4. So thankfully, number 4 was a girl. And then we still didn't have a middle name picked out. We decided that on the spot. So I would say in experience, it was not any more fun to find out later. It was just as fun to find out at 20-week ultrasound or whatever.
Yep.
So we decided number 5, we're going to find out. And that was the first thing that we wanted to do when we got the 20-week ultrasound. It was like, show us.
Yep.
Show us the magic.
So 5 kids.
5 kids, yeah.
Are you planning to do more?
If you're not planning to have more, then
Probably have more.
yeah, maybe. A first kid we've used midwives for all of our kids. And the first midwife appointment we had with our oldest, she asked us, hey, how many kids do you want to have? What's your plan? And we looked at each other like, I don't know, like 3, 4. She's like, well, you guys should talk about this and figure this out. So then the next time she asked, she goes, have you guys decided on a number? And Christine looks at me because we didn't really talk about it much. And I was like, 11 sounds good. She's like, ooh, good for business. No, I'm just joking. But, and then she's like, well, why 11? And I was like, well, my grandfather was one of 10. So if I'm competitive and I want to beat him, then, I got to go for 11.
The 11th man.
11 is a football team, right? So you open up your options. I think soccer is 11 too.
Yeah.
So you have a lot more options when it comes to family gatherings. I've always enjoyed being part of a bigger family. I grew up one of 4, the oldest of 4. Now I have a 5th younger sister that was brought into the family. She's a stepsister. And it's fun being part of a bigger family. But what was even more fun was being part of a really big extended family. So we had, my grandfather was one of 10. And then there were like 30-something cousins that my dad had. And then like 84-something second cousins that I was part of. So whenever we had a family reunion, we had a big party.
Yeah.
So I just kind of like envisioned myself, and it's funny to think of this as a young man being the old man, my great grandfather at his 90th birthday party and having 70 people at his birthday party that were all his family. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not married to any specific number. We've been doing the one at a time drill at this point. So
talk to me. I'm obviously, I just got married a year ago. We were talking about potentially getting our first kid here soon. But something that I'm interested to hear from you is now having 5 kids, or 4 and 5 on the way. What is that like for you in terms of handling business? Because you run your own business. How do you manage both of those? Family, lots of kids, and your business.
Yeah, I think that's an important question. So for me, my family is more important to me than my business. So I always make sure that they're higher on the priority list. And that just means being efficient and effective with the time that I spend at work, and then the same thing at home. So typically I'm dropping the kids off at school in the morning, and I'm in the office around 9 and I'm home by around 6. And that's a normal person's day, right? But I intentionally make sure that I'm home and I get to spend time with them in the evenings. I make sure that I block off time in the weekends. I think in real estate specifically, it's challenging, or people struggle with setting boundaries. So I set clear boundaries, and I have staff as well. So I can we can share the load for the weekends. And just setting clear boundaries, I think, and expectations with clients, and making sure that there's support as well for them on those days where I'm not specifically working. I think it creates the balance and also the experience that clients are looking for. So kind of juggle it that way.
Have you had any like pushback from clients or claiming you're maybe not available enough or anything like that? Or
no, I get the opposite response. Super responsive, available, because it's not about me specifically. It's about the team and their experience working with us. It's not just working with me. So if somebody else is working on Saturday and I'm not working on Saturday, they're still being taken care of. And that's the culture that I want to have. And so same thing on Sundays. But if something needs to happen, or I need to step in, or we need to negotiate a deal, or that's all stuff that I take care of. So my family's okay with that and understands that sometimes I need to take a call, or I need to, write up an offer or whatever. But again, I have team members that help out with those things too. So there's a give and a take on that. But the thing is that they know that I don't do that all the time. So if I was to be doing that all the time, I think that ruins the family life. If I'm always answering phone calls all the time on the weekends, or if I'm always gone showing a house or doing this or that, I think that compromises the family life. But I can only be in one place at one time. But that doesn't mean that I can't have team members that are in other places while I'm somewhere else.
So you've been in real estate since 2015, is that correct?
2014.
2014. Mm-hmm. So when would you say that you shifted your ideology around balancing family and business and creating those clear boundaries?
It was the same the whole time.
So you knew that from the very beginning?
I knew that my family was more important to me than my business. But at the same time, it looked different at that time in life. So I didn't even have any kids when I started in real estate. So it was fine if I was gone on Saturdays and Sundays. I could take a Monday off or a Tuesday off, or whatever day I wanted to, or I could work a half a day, 2 or 3 days in the week, and it didn't really matter. But as my kids got a little bit older and my wife needed some more help, right, with the kids, it wasn't as feasible or practical for me to be gone all those times. So that's where I had to change what it looked like. I think it made the experience for clients better, not only having me, but having multiple people working together. Because as I think you found in your business, you can only do so much by yourself. Mm-hmm. So I've been able to help more clients and provide a better experience for them and better results even than I could have ever done on my own. Yeah. So that only has made things better. So me prioritizing my family forced me to think differently about how I ran my business, and it turned out that made it even better. So
take me into the moment of letting go of some of those responsibilities.
Yeah, I mean, I want to be involved in everything, and I naturally think I'm the best at everything, and it's not true. So learning and thinking through what I am actually the best at and what I am gifted with has been helpful, because I've been able to pass off some of the things that I'm not even as good at to other team members, and the clients get a better experience working with them on those things. And then I'm able to focus on and deliver on the things that I'm better at an even higher level. So I think that's been a huge win.
So you went through
but I still have a hard time with not wanting to be involved. It's not an easy thing for me. Mm-hmm. I would say I want to be involved, but I know that I need to not be involved. Mm-hmm. So, and every time I was part of a business coaching program for a lot of the top producing real estate agents and mortgage lenders across the country over the past 4 years. And in that program, one of the things that you do is you go on site visits. So you go and you visit your coach. You also go to 3 or 4 day, they call them summits, and you're away, but you're still working, but you're away, and you're supposed to be focusing on improving and growing as a business owner and also as a professional. And when you're in those places, or even when you're on vacation and you still have clients and things happening, it forces you out and forces the team to step up and learn new things. What I found is every time I went to one of those summits or I went on vacation, that my team got better. And the clients also were able to learn and see that my team members are even better at some of these other things than I am. and they enjoyed it, and they would stop talking to me about stuff. There were times where clients wouldn't even be messaging me or wanting to even talk to me. Recently, I had a client that didn't even really want to talk to me. They just wanted to talk to my assistant. They got along really well. And she helped them with getting, listing paperwork signed while I was on vacation with my family this summer. And I come back, and she was fine talking to me, and we had some really good conversations. But all she wanted from me was just that weekly check-in that I do with her for a couple minutes. She's like, "I'm doing great. Marie's taking great care of me. I'm good." Okay, sweet.
Wow.
So I called her once a week for the rest of the transaction and made sure at a high level she was being taken care of, and I was involved in the negotiation process. And but she didn't really even care if I was on that call. She just wanted to keep talking to Marie and enjoy those conversations, and didn't feel like there was any kind of a drop off between her and me, and there shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So I think if people are empowered and doing what they're best at, then that's a win for everybody.
So why real estate?
That's an interesting question. Yeah. I don't have like a really romantic story. It's fun, and maybe it's more nostalgic, but my mom sold real estate when I was a kid. She was a part-time agent, which a lot of real estate agents are. I would say even more so now than it used to be. A lot of people use real estate as a side hustle. So my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she was for most of my early childhood. And then after we bought our first house, I think it was after selling that first house, my mom was like, maybe I should do real estate. And I enjoy this. I like people. And so my mom would do real estate in the evenings and on the weekends. And I think maybe she helped 7 to 10 people a year on average. It wasn't like a big thing for her, but it was some side income for our family, and my mom was good at it. And then, growing up, getting to watch that and see that, I always looked at it. I was like, oh yeah, I think I'd be good at that. I think I'd enjoy doing real estate. And then my grandfather, after he retired from his travel agency business that he had for years, he moonlighted as a real estate agent as well. And so again, it's just, there was a lot of connection and getting to see that. But it wasn't until post-college, I was working for my church at the time, and my best friend, his parents had been building their own houses, and his mom was more heavily involved in development and building, and the dad got his real estate license and was starting to do some of their own projects a little bit more. And it was a conversation with him. I went to him and I said, "Hey, can I work on your house flipping crew? Can I be part of your remodel?" He's like, "Honestly, I don't think this is what you should do." He's like, "I would hire you, but I think what you should do is go get your real estate license. I think that's going to be a little bit better use of your skill sets and your gifts." So I thought about it and prayed about it and talked to people, and that's the route that I decided to go.
Is there a part, now that you've been in it for, 8, 9 years, almost 10 years now?
Yeah.
Is there an aspect of the business now that you're building that you've become addicted to? And I'll just share my experience. Obviously, I got in with video. You were the first person to bring me in to do video for real estate. I was doing a lot of weddings or events at the time, right after college. And I picked up video because my dad also did video back with the VHS. Then me and my older brother Jansen used the DV tapes in high school and junior high. Jansen was way better than I was. And I liked it, but then I dropped it because the DV tapes were miserable. You literally had to watch everything you recorded as it imported to the computer. It's terrible. But then digital came out.
Yep.
Totally changed the game. I was living in California at the time. But anyway, so I got into it because I loved the craft of it. I loved the filming of it, and I loved the editing of it.
Okay.
Now, fast forward about 10 years, I've become addicted to getting better at whatever it needs to be getting better at to progress the business, whether that's team development or speaking, getting my public speaking, my voice, or I've become addicted to just getting better. Is there an aspect, and of course I'm always using the mediums that I have at my fingertips, right? Like the video, learning lighting, doing all those things, but then I continually just find these new things that I get addicted to getting better, which ultimately then progresses the video production company. Is there something in the real estate space that you felt yourself, and I've seen you go through all these mentorship programs and do some things. Is there something that you found that you've been addicted to, that you've gotten yourself addicted to now, having been in it for 10 years?
That's a good question. I think just even hearing your story, I relate a lot to that. So for me, it's always been about getting better. And there hasn't been one specific thing that I've wanted to get better at. It's just continually getting better. So whether it's doing videos, I want to get better at doing videos. If it's making a podcast or starting a podcast, which is something that I'm working on right now, maybe even a couple different podcasts, I want to get better. I want to be great at those things. And it's less about one specific thing and more of a similar trend. I remember I'm a Christian, and as a newer Christian, I was reading all these books trying to learn about who God is and how to read the Bible. And then I remember wanting to learn about other things, and I took the same approach. I was like, well, what are other people who have been there before? What have they done? And so for me, a lot of it was early on, a lot of reading. And then I still read. It's a little bit harder to read and find time for that. I don't want to find time for it, but I still do read, but a lot of it has been having conversations with people or being in some coaching programs and learning from people directly versus maybe more indirectly with books. But for me, it's just always been about learning and growing and getting better. And I find as I do that, then so does my business.
Yeah.
And everything else in my life, right? My money gets better, my family gets better, my faith and my walk with God gets better. All of those things are better as a result of me growing and evolving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So very similar to you. I think I approach my life similarly. So it's hard to pinpoint one specific thing that I feel like, oh, I've gotten so great at this, or I want to get better at this. It's just like everything,
mm-hmm,
right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you just lump it all into one category? Like I want to be better at everything.
Would you say then business in and of itself has catapulted you in that direction of just, it provides a platform of so many different directions that you can go to get better at certain things? It's almost, does that elevate your living experience that you have so many different things that you can do to get better?
I think what it does is it allows me to just be more consistently growing and using my time for that. I'm not always focused on doing tasks. I can set aside time and have time for personal growth, professional growth. I could take a day to go hike in the woods. I did that last week. I'm not doing this coaching program anymore. And so I was starting to think, I'm spending in that program, I was spending at least 2 hours a week doing things related to it. And I was also traveling 4 times a year for 2 or 3 days at a time, minimum. So I was really spending 10 to 20 days, depending on the year, minimum, getting away, having time for reflection, having time to grow and make changes in my business. And that was just for that, let alone any time that I already had set aside separately. So I decided to start doing hikes once a month. And so I took the entire day off on Friday. I went and climbed a little mountain that didn't have too much snow on it. At this time of year, you start to get a lot of snow, and I don't personally want to put myself in positions where I'm really endangering myself, but I enjoy getting out, doing a snowshoe or a hike. And so that for me was super refreshing. I brought my hammock and a sleeping bag because it was like less than 20 degrees at the top of the mountain. And I was just able to sit and think and enjoy time. And that's super refreshing. So instead of going to Phoenix, maybe, or going to San Antonio or some other, sunny place in the US and staying in a fancy hotel and doing the same thing, I could just go do that here in my own backyard, and it's just a little bit colder. I mean, how about for you? Like what does that look like for you in your life? How are you setting aside time for getting better and improving, your business?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like I said, having that addiction to getting better, I do struggle with, I could work 24/7 and just go for it nonstop. Now that I'm married, now we don't have kids, I've had to learn now to adjust some of that time towards putting in time to working on my marriage and working on my relationship with Christine, which has taught me a lot. I have that same addiction now to making our marriage the absolute best ever, through reading, through spending time. Am I the best at it? No, but I'm continually learning, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, in finding that balance, I mean, we're continually learning and putting in different habits or discipline. Mm-hmm. And we go to counseling. We started that before we even got married, and we keep doing it. Yeah. And highly recommend anybody doing it. It's absolutely phenomenal.
Most newlywed couples, they do counseling before they get married, maybe, especially maybe in a faith context. And then they don't do anything afterwards, and they're just kind of all by themselves trying to figure it out. And it's almost more difficult once you're married, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you're like trying to figure out things ahead of time, but then you're like walking through life and you're just kind of on your own.
It was so interesting because we didn't live together, but she moved in about a month before we got married, and then we got married. But even after, there was like an adjustment, a change, right? You're leading up. There's an exciting thing to getting married, and then it kind of flips on its head where now
you're actually married.
Now you're married. We're together, and it's
kind of exciting when you're like newlyweds, right? Yeah. And if you haven't lived together before you get married, it's kind of fun, but it's a big adjustment.
I'm continually trying to and I think once I have kids, getting up earlier is going to be easier. But it's time easier. Before 8 a.m., any hour before 8 a.m. is like the most calming. It's
going to be before 7 a.m. And then, before 7 a.m. is going to be, and it might be even earlier.
Oh yeah. The 6 a.m., 5:30, 6 a.m. is my dream. When it's like the world is quiet and it's a time period where you can literally, whatever you're reading, and just have complete non-distraction time to yourself to personally grow, whether that's for your relationship, for your faith, anything. It's that time period is so epic and critical. And I'm excited to get better at that.
It'll have to be earlier and earlier because little kids don't sleep till 8.
And then your energy is shot by 8 p.m.
Yeah, which is why it's harder to read.
Exactly.
Right? So you have to make choices. And sometimes those are, there's seasons. Like sometimes it's easier for me to read. Sometimes it's easier for me to work out. I do tend to prioritize exercise over reading. My health over learning something new. But if I can do all of it, of course, that's great. So, and there's ways to redeem your time in the car, driving around, listening to a podcast, listening to a book. I listen to the Bible on the way into work in the mornings usually, and then I'll listen to a podcast or something like that on the way home, or listen to music if I want. But there's ways to redeem the time that you use. But you have to get a little bit more creative and efficient. I think that's the big thing. You have to get a lot more efficient with your time and how you use it. You're talking about that with your marriage, right? And now even though you would like to work all the time, and I wouldn't mind working all the time either. I enjoy it. Maybe I wouldn't want to do real estate stuff 24 hours a day, but I wouldn't mind like spending every part of my day working, at least most days. But it's not practical. And there's people in my life that are important, and that they are more important to me than working more or making more money. But ironically, it all kind of goes together.
It does.
Right? It forces you to be more efficient and prioritize, and everything gets better. It's not this or that. A lot of times it's all of it. But you have to be intentional and focus in the times that you have. So, and I've also found doing better in business isn't about working more. Right? It's about having better systems and processes. It's about having better people that you work with. It's less about how much I do and how much labor I'm putting into it or how much time I'm spending. So I think that's also been a big shift and change for me. And I get to see it in my wife. So my wife runs a swim school, and I unintentionally was rocking this hat today, but she when she was going back to work or wanted to go back to work, I think we had our first kid, and we took in a foster kid, and she was like, this is what I'm going to spend my time on. And that was great. And I think we had another kid, and then we took in another foster kid. This is a long story that we won't get into, but we had 3 little kids under 2 at one point, and we had 2 kids under 1. It was like we had twins a couple of different times. It was a lot. And then after we had our second kid and we were kind of getting into the rhythms, my wife was like, hey, I want to start working again. I'm like, okay, cool. What was your favorite job that you ever had? Because I had a different perspective now. I really enjoyed real estate. I can't even remember how many years it had been. Maybe I was in 3 or 4 years at that point. I can't remember. But I was really enjoying real estate and would never have wanted to go back and do a job I didn't enjoy. So I just asked her, what did you enjoy most? And she told me, being a swim instructor. I was like, really? That was your favorite job you've ever had? She said, yeah, I love teaching swim lessons. I love empowering mainly kids with a new skill and helping them be more confident and successful and also safer. But I think she just enjoys seeing the growth and the transformation, and it happens pretty quickly. And so we talked a little bit more about it, and she worked at the YMCA, and then she taught friends how to swim in college that didn't know how to swim, that were scared of the water, and she taught friends on the side. So there was, a lot of history there. So she started teaching at the athletic club, and meanwhile, I'm, starting to change and think about things differently for me in my business, because a lot of the earlier days was me doing a lot of work, and I've got little kids and my wife's at home, and like we just kind of, that's how we did it. And then she was now wanting to do some work, and she wasn't working full time, but she was working at the athletic club, and we have kids that needed a lot more attention, and she needed more of my help and being around and more present. And then it grew. They're like, well, we want you to run our aquatics department. And then she started accidentally teaching a neighbor lessons in the pool next door. And then that person brought friends, and it started to grow into this thing where she was working 20 plus hours a week and had a nanny for the little kids. It was a complete accident, but something that she enjoyed, and it just kind of started to snowball. Yeah. And I think maybe 3 years ago, somebody had approached her and said, hey, I've got a pool I'd love you to use. If you want, you can use my pool. And so immediately she went from just teaching some lessons in the summer to being able to teach lessons all year round. And that was a huge turning point for her in her business, going from operating a couple months out of the year to all year round. And even in the middle of that was bringing on staff. Yeah. Because she was starting to like, okay, well, I'm going to have a nanny and I'm working and I'm in the pool, but the nanny and the staff, like it's about the same. So, but I want to be around my kids. So instead of her working 25, 30 hours a week in the pool, she brought in a couple staff, and she was able to provide more lessons and also be at home with the kids. Wow. That was with our third kid, right? Yeah. And then she's got the all year round thing going. And the next year we're having another kid, right? Kid number 4 comes, and she's like, you know what? I don't want to be in the pool at all. And I don't even have time or bandwidth to do a lot of the operational kind of stuff, because I still want to be hanging out with the kids. So then she hired an assistant. So now she has like a director of operations, and she's got a fully operational business, and she fills in occasionally in the pool. Now she's leading the business, but she's working 5 to 10 hours a week. Now,
was your wife entrepreneurial before all this, or was that something that you kind of helped draw out of her?
Her dad ran a really successful fiberglass repair shop for many years, and he's very entrepreneurial. And I think she's got an entrepreneurial bent for sure, but she's very operationally minded, and she's really great at taking something and running with it and growing it. So I don't know if she would have naturally done something like that, but with a husband that's entrepreneurial and has always kind of had my own little things going, and I think that was a good push and encouragement. But this has all been her thing, aside from maybe some conversations, right, and consulting. But there's hardly been any effort from my end. It's all been her driving this forward. She's been the one hiring, the one training, and the one building it all and building the relationships. So it's been really fun to watch. Yeah. So if anything, it was just, what's your favorite job that you've ever had, right? Almost that question, and the freedom to pursue that, and then to continue to pursue it and take risks. So it's her income has never been needed in our family for like living expenses. So it's just a lot of freedom that she has to go and make it happen, which is cool, because when I started doing real estate, she was working at a bank, and that was the only money that we had. And it wasn't a big paycheck. So we were living well below our means, and she was working at the bank, and I wasn't making nothing. And I had freedom to at least go try, figure it out. Mm-hmm. And then I found out maybe 4 months in that we were expecting our first kid, and she kind of looked at me like, well, you kind of got to figure this out or go get a job, right? Wow. So we both had those same types of moments where we made a decision that I'm going to go commit to this. And so she's looked at it differently. She's had a completely different mindset and said, how can I continue to provide an experience for my clients that they're really excited about? And how can I continue to grow this without taking more of my time and putting it into it? Yeah. Which is a huge blessing for her, right? Looking back, that would be, I think things might even look different now if I started to have team and staff earlier. Mm-hmm. But I was more hesitant to hire people and invest in people. And I wanted to bet on myself and be the one. I think in real estate, you've got lots of different models and ways to do things. But I think that in people's mind, a lot of times they're like, well, this is my real estate agent. But most of the top real estate agents aren't doing it by themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's why people keep going back to them and wanting to work with them, because they have a great team as well. And sometimes that team isn't really talked about or mentioned or even advertised at all. But most of the top agents have staff, right? They might be in the back office. You may never really interact with them, but they're not doing it all by themselves. So I think just being a top producer involves, you need people to be involved in the process.
Yeah.
And so my wife, she's a rock star. I'm super proud of her. And right now we are working on building a structure over our pool. So we bought a new house. It was a huge leap because we've talked about this idea, right? We could have always gone and bought maybe a commercial space and grown the swim school like that. It's been very organic. She was borrowing people's pools, and then she was borrowing one person's pool and at a higher level. And now she's still doing that, but we bought a house in Shoreline where we're going to build a structure over the pool. And that's been my job. So I joke that I have a second job right now, but it's something that I'm good at. So I'm spending my energy and efforts now helping with that as well. And we're getting closer to permits and such. And once we have all that, then we'll be able to cover this pool, and then we'll be able to run lessons out of this house in Shoreline. So we'll have 2 locations, one that we own, and then we'll have another location that we rent and partner with somebody else. And that's maybe the beginning of multiple versions of this, which is really cool and exciting, but I'm getting to be part of that. But we moved into a smaller house to be able to accomplish this. We sold the other one. We didn't need to, but it was nice to be able to we're going to take some of that money and invest it in this building, which will then be a revenue generator for us, and also then repurpose it in other places. So it's been exciting. It's been a lot though over the past few months, a big decision, a big change for the family. The kids are, being troopers about it, but they're all sharing rooms now. And so I don't know how long we'll stay in this house, if it's a long-term deal, or if it maybe becomes a rental in the future and we still can operate the business, depending on how we can work all that out. So maybe that might be the longer term vision, but for now we're really enjoying having a swimming pool, and the project is, at least at this point, it's quite a grind. So I'm staying up. You talk about working late. I'm staying up till I go to bed at night, multiple nights, just like working on stuff with the city and going back and forth. And I'm essentially the GC of this project as we're working on doing it, but it's a great experience. Be able to take some of this and maybe build our own house someday. And so I'm just treating it as a learning experience, and it's only going to help me with clients when they have questions like this and trying to figure out how to do some of their own projects. I'll have a lot more insight to share, not just information, but personal experience, which is always helpful as well.
The last topic that I want to jump into just for a quick
how are we
couple minutes here is I've talked with a lot of people that I feel like a lot of people would love to start their own business or love to go off and do something on their own and build something on their own. But whether it's family or financial situations, or maybe don't just have a clear idea, don't know where to start and whatnot, they end up not starting a business or not moving forward with that idea. But a thought that keeps coming to my mind, and I want to hear your philosophy on this, in a quicker answer is, my brother just purchased a house, and when I see that, and he's also has a bit of entrepreneur, but he's also he works a gig. In my mind, though, purchasing a house, even if you live, whether it's your main house you're living in or not, that in and of itself is almost a business that you're getting into, right? Well, how would you agree with that? That because you have to learn how to take care of it. You have to learn how to invest into it. You have to learn how to make it better, because you're ultimately going to sell it sometime down the road to either get into a bigger house or to rent it out. You're continually having to figure things out regarding your house to keep it functional, to keep it high value. Yeah. And I feel like anybody that does purchase a house, that is their first business. And then with financial education, should they do move out and use it as a rental and create income from themselves, and then they have to then learn how to manage it themselves, the whole thing, should that be the direction they go? I feel like that really is a cool, whether you think about it or not, that's basically what a business is. You purchase into something, you learn how to make it better, and then you run with it and you keep it going, whether you're living in it or not. What are your thoughts on that? I think it's a fun concept. I think that starting a business is probably more like building a house than buying a house. So, if you buy a house, it's already there and you're learning, it's existing, it's functioning. There's nothing you really need to do to it. In a lot of cases, you have to make some changes and alterations, but it's fully functioning. I think starting a business is so different. And I'm just building a structure over my pool, and it takes so much effort
to get things rolling. I'm networking with people to meet the contractors that I want to work with, and I'm talking to the city and asking questions and learning about the process and what's going to be needed for my project and what permit I'm going to need. And there's so many things that I'm learning that I didn't know before or hadn't ever walked through. And I haven't even done squat, right? It's been months and we have no progress aside from what's happening on the back end that you can't see. So I think that's more what starting a business is like. If you're thinking about real estate example, would be like, you got a piece of land and you're going to build a house. I mean, we're sitting in a beautiful new construction house right now. Somebody started with maybe even a house here, most likely, and they tore it down and they built multiple houses here, and they're gorgeous, but it started with just a piece of dirt.
Yeah.
And they knew what the process was like. And a lot of times when people start a business, they don't even know how to do that. So it's not they're not doing it as a professional entrepreneur. They're doing it as an amateur entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And if you're an amateur entrepreneur, you're learning how to start a business while you're starting a business. So it's probably more like me, if I was to go build my own house right now, than, Merit Homes in this beautiful house we're sitting in. So
yeah,
I think that's how I would tweak that analogy.
Yeah.
Or at least think about it a little differently.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, dude, thanks for coming in and sitting in on an hour conversation, just talk. I got to learn a ton about you and your family, what you and your wife are doing.
Yeah.
The new home that you just purchased, building the pool. Now she's got her business up and running. She's been killing it. So
yeah,
dude, I love hearing about it. Love hearing about the why, what, makes you push, how you manage the different aspects of your life, family and business, as that's something that I'm in, and also learning and growing through and evolving and seeing different perspectives on how to make it better. So I appreciate the insights all around, man. That's awesome.
You got it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, dude.
All right, let's do it again.
Cool.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening. Hopefully this was really helpful to you in your journey of building a business. If you like what you heard, please click subscribe, because that will help us tremendously when we're producing content of huge value to you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, and I hope that you have an amazing week.